President Jacob Zuma has closed the ANC policy conference firmly in control of the party, but it hasn't been an easy ride, with the ANC not singing from the same hymn sheet on the key policy issues.
The experience of Polokwane saw a very good crop of leadership moving out and forming an organization. And of course, if we think about ourselves, we might think it was the right thing. But if we think about the ANC must grow all the time. It must not go down. And because we so disagreed that we began to have very hardened kind of attitude. And I can go on and on. In fact, if you realize, quite a number of opposition parties are the snippets that comes out of the ANC, or pieces, because they're small. Even if they go out with some number, it would shrink, particularly because our problem has never been ideological. It tends to be personal, it tends to be friendly, it tends to be interest-driven, and therefore that is not helping the ANC. And I want to persuade the membership and everybody that we should find a solution, and that the proposal that I think has been discussed in some commissions, perhaps not concluded. I think in one report, the report is there of options. I think we need to have one specific idea. What do we think we need to do? Of course, we could look at the options. I believe we need to get rid of the factions. And how to get rid of the factions? This is a proposal. That you must go and discuss. Partly because, just to talk a bit about factions, they've become so deep. If bengizibeka ngesizulu bengathi seyikhulile sezinempandla nempunga asasipuleki. We almost have a situation where it looks like two organizations exist in one. It can't be right. In order to deal with this, if at all, comrades, after looking at the programs, etc., and feel that this particular comrade can lead us, and others feel another one can lead us, and therefore there's a contestation, in order to maintain the understanding and comradeship, at the end, when one wins, let us not then say those who are opposing out, nobody comes in. In other words, the slate politics. Because what does that do? It means those comrades who are defeated, as they are defeated, they start working, plotting, working hard, raising money in order to destabilize those who won. And the whole 5 years, there is a war that is silent. And that destabilizes the African National Congress. We need a stable ANC, a united ANC, that does not contribute to that. And I would really love comrades to discuss this until December, so that in December we can take a decision. Do we want the ANC that is perpetually destabilized, fighting among itself? I don't think so. We want a stable ANC, united ANC, the ANC that must take South Africa forward. For us to succeed, we need to get rid of the factions. How? That's a good question. If we have two, what is it? Huh? Okay. And one of the comrades wins. Let us not get rid of the one who did not win. Let us make the one who became number 2 or who did not win to be a deputy of the one who is leading. This will have the effect that both factions will come together and work together on the 2 leaders that they wanted to lead the organization. In other words, we move away from where we say if these comrades have lost, all of them out, and they get angry and they fight against those who have won. Is a destructive system. Doesn't help the ANC. But if we put them together, all the comrades who have been leading, others have won more, others have won as well. Nobody has lost. And even when you begin to deploy these, both sides will be taken into consideration and will work together. Of course, the question could be asked that if that is the case, what happens to the right of the delegate, the branches, who constitutionally have a right to nominate a deputy president? Besides these 2, what happens? I think for the sake of our unity, for the sake of the organization, we need to amend the ANC constitution on one factor. The comrade who was nominated to become the deputy, when he wins, he becomes the number 2 deputy. Yebo. Unless you change the constitution radically to get rid of the nomination of a deputy president. Otherwise, in order to accommodate that, you can come with any formula. And 2 deputy president is not like out of the way. It's a very practical thing. Even the workload, because you then accommodate everything, but you would have united the ANC. This is an option. You can discuss any other option. If you agree with this formula, how then do we accommodate what is in the structures today? This is said you must go and discuss. The fact of the matter, you can't say the constitution can't be changed. You can destroy the ANC without tweaking the constitution in order to accommodate a system that is going to help the ANC unite and move forward. But you can have whatever formula that you want to have. Fact of the matter, this is a remedy to kill factions in the ANC. These are proposals to be taken to the branches. You debate them, you find the best formula, we finalize it in 6 months' time in the national conference. Even if we don't apply it in the conference in December, we apply it in the conferences thereafter. I have no problem. As long as we take a clear resolution that is going to help heal the tensions within the movement. It's absolutely crucial. We can't stay with permanent factions and tensions within the organization that is expected to unite South Africa, to take South Africa forward, is a contradiction in terms. And I trust that you will consider this very seriously. Because even if you can have denialism about it, but it's the reality. Comrades begin to hate other comrades. I'm not going to other details, which I can go if we did not have our guests. I would have gone into some details, what it has caused the organization. I'm just leaving it at this superficial level so that you don't have rather exciting headlines. But you understand what I mean. You understand what I mean. If need be, I can go from province to province to motivate this proposal. I'm ready to do so, because I believe it is correct. And therefore, branches should consider this proposal to have a second deputy president so as to include the candidate who obtained the second highest votes in the contest for the position of president. In other words, even if 3 or 6 comrades contest for the presidency, number 1 becomes the president, number 2 in terms of numbers becomes the deputy. Sayitoli solution. Saltoli kambi. The remedy. The remedy. There is consensus that our movement can no longer afford to totally reject leaders who were preferred by a significant number of members to lead. You will remember in Polokwane, those who won had 60%, those who lost had 40%. And comrades said, consider the 40% is a significant number. But because we had no formula, no remedy, part of the 40% emerged as an organization, let alone that the organization is almost disappearing, partly because difficult to be outside of the ANC. Comrades, I'm happy that I've raised this point, particularly in the plenary, because I think we need to find a solution to our problem. It does not, in other words, this does not remove lobbying or whatever, but the lobbying will be very comradely. And people would not lobby as if there is no tomorrow. And they will not plot against others, because they will know, no matter who wins, this is our organization, we remain within our organization, and we'll be part of it. Comrades, important proposals have emerged for strengthening the National Executive Committee by making it smaller, while at the same time strengthening the full-time capacity at the head office. There are options to be considered by the National Conference for more deputy secretaries general and additional deputy president and more directly elected full-time NEC members to manage the day-to-day work of the organization in policy, political education, elections, organizing, and communications. A strong recommendation came out of this conference on the need to have monitoring and evaluation capacity located either within the office of the Deputy President or the Deputy Secretary General. Again, I want to spend a few minutes on this proposal. Comrades will all agree that we have our wonderful policies and programs and indeed resolutions. We all complain that we are weak on implementation. We always do this. We have actually taken this decision before to say we need a performance monitoring and evaluation unit. This time around, I think, from now to December, let us work on this. How should this particular entity look like? Who must lead it? What type of personnel must be part of it? And it must work almost on a full-time basis. And it must report 4 times a year. In other words, each time the NEC meets, this unit must report how far we've gone in implementing resolutions and programs. And it must coordinate with that unit that is in government. Because the ANC has its government. It must get reports on a regular basis. How is government performing? And therefore that unit will help inform this one so that the NEC is aware of the political implementation of our decisions as well as government. Critical to have this. We can no longer take this decision and leave it hanging. We need to construct it, put it in place, man it, or what if we will say man it is old English, personify it or something. The point I'm making is a critical recommendation that if we implement it, I can tell you the issue of implementation will be addressed. This proposal is informed by the challenge of implementation that we have observed over the years. Comrades, our branches must go back and discuss the type of structure and define its power, functions, and composition of the structure. This unit must liaise with the planning, monitoring, and evaluation department in government. This unit must be fully capacitated and must report at every ANC meeting about its monitoring and evaluation work. In other words, we shouldn't say there are no resources for this. If there are resources in somewhere else, let us take them and prefer to give this one, because it is important. We have taken many resolutions on many key and critical issues, but because we have weak capacity to monitor and evaluate their implementations, we have been found wanting. An effective monitoring and evaluation unit located at the head office is central to the ANC's position as the strategic center of power. We still do not have such a unit capacitated at a desired level, and this has resulted in the inability of the ANC to ensure the full implementation of its program of action. We have just something of in the presidency there, trying to resemble this, but it's weak, not capacitated. We're trying to implement the decision, but because it was not a decision enforced in the manner in which we are saying it should, you have people who can't even go to provinces and interact with comrades, etc. So it's absolutely important. In other words, this reality means that the capacity of our movement to enforce discipline on and ensure accountability from its deployed cadres is severely limited. Many commissions have decried the failure to implement some of our resolutions and have attributed this failure to the lack of monitoring and evaluation capacity, which has undermined the mandates received at various conferences. Comrades, the discussions in the strategy and tactics and organizational renewal and the economic transformation commissions and at plenary were robust on the issue of the characterization of monopoly capital. This is, as it should be, a debate by the members of the ANC on critical issues. The correct characterization of phenomena is important. In this regard, it is technically correct in the context of the South African political economy to talk of white monopoly capital. With this understanding in mind, it is also important to lay the emphasis on the fact that it is monopoly capital as such that is the primary adversary of the collective interests of our people, regardless of its color. The most critical thing, comrades, is that we share a common view about what measures we need to take to realize our ultimate objectives. We must not allow ourselves to be divided simply on the basis of conceptualization and grand theory. I want to reiterate that our definition of radical socio-economic transformation captures the essence of what we aim to achieve in terms of fundamentally changing the structure, systems, institutions, and patterns of ownership and control of the economy of the country, and making it inclusive of the poor and working class, most of whom are African and female. In fact, we agree that many of the measures we are already taking through the NDP, including reindustrialization and regional integration, are critical in this regard. One of the important factors that we need always to take into consideration, even if we look at the world where where the system is the same, South Africa has a peculiar history. And you cannot, if you describe the system in this country, not take that into account. Many colonial countries only had administrators. And when freedom came, administrators packed their bags and went back to what we used to be called the mother country. In South Africa, it's the only country that I know that had a huge number of settlers who came to stay and therefore created very special conditions, different from others. Now, you can't define South Africa the same if we are talking about South Africa. While you could generalize on other issues, but when it comes to us, you have to take that into account. And therefore, that definition of the monopoly capital in South Africa, I think this conference has added more elements to make it even more understood. What is at issue is accelerating and deepening these interventions. We are agreed that these measures include legislation and regulations, licensing conditions, public procurement, financial and other support, and the reorientation of the mandate of development finance institutions. We agree on the imperative to accelerate land redistribution and land reform. Again, we had robust discussions on the modalities of achieving this. We agree that using the focus for land redistribution must be accompanied by other measures if we are to achieve the goal at the required pace. Where it is necessary and unavoidable, this may include expropriation without compensation within the law, within the Constitution. The Constitution provides for legislative changes to be effected in the democratic process. Democracy is about agreeing on things, is about a system that there are no dictators. Things are discussed either in parliament or whatever forum until you reach an agreement. Once an agreement is reached, that becomes your policy. It does not say in democracies you cannot amend the laws. No, you cannot amend the fundamental law, the Constitution. It is how you do it. In other countries, dictators would say, here there must be the sea and the sea will be there. Like what happened at the beginning. But in democracies, you discuss. If you feel there is a clause to be changed in order to achieve what our people need, democratically you introduce it to be discussed in parliament and see where you go. That is the democratic system. What would be wrong is to say because the land was taken, let us take it. Bafuna ukuboshwa lapho. Because baphula umthetho. But we have got to discuss. If we don't agree, the majority prevails. That's why when it comes not to other laws, a simple majority, but when it comes to the Constitution, 2/3. Because it's a serious matter. You can't say you can't go to 2/3 because you have a view that this thing must not be done. As long as it is within the rules of democracy, why can't you do it within what is accepted?